SA Tourism held a press briefing this morning to further back its close to R1 billion proposed sponsorship deal with English football club Tottenham Hotspur. The organisation insists its mandate is to promote South Africa and keep the money rolling into the country. Well, let's speak to the Democratic Alliance now in terms of what we heard from SA Tourism. They believe that this is a slap on the face of South Africans. Manny de Freitas is an MP responsible for tourism with the party. Manny, thank you very much for availing yourself this afternoon. So, according to the acting CEO of Tourism South Africa, the conversation should be about economic recovery because tourism is one of the biggest economic drivers.
Well, he's absolutely correct. But how the money is spent, how we spend and make sure that we get our economy growing and getting our tourism growing is the question. What we should be focusing on, for example, is making sure that local enterprises are looked after. During COVID and now during load shedding, enterprises are suffering. There's lots of jobs being shed. Many companies are closing down within the sector. And they should rather be inputting the money in there to help these organizations. Now, taking it to an overseas soccer team that already is quite well off, I don't think it's the right. I think it lacks the sensitivity that we're in at the moment, in the middle of a load shedding crisis. And we should rather be looking, spending the money in a different way that will ensure that our local enterprises are growing. Now, what is interesting, Mr. Kamala was talking about, he mentioned, for example, Rwanda and how they did a similar exercise and how they were spending money. Rwanda came out of a genocide war, and they were desperate and are desperate to change their image. We don't need to do that. South Africa is an easy sell. Anybody in the world will tell you that it's a beautiful country, you have great weather, wonderful people, great scenery and so forth. So it's an easy sell. And even by his own admission this afternoon when he did his press conference, he was talking about how our economy is growing, our tourism economy is growing, and this is all without the help of any international partner like a soccer team. So we should continue rather assisting our local enterprises. In many cases, you have some fantastic tourism sites that tourists can't get to, for example. Let's build roads that can access to these sites. There are many townships with wonderful activities that are taking place, but the infrastructure isn't there. We should rather be pumping it in there. So I think it is very insensitive at this time when we're in the midst of a load-shedding crisis to go and spend R1 billion on a nice-to-have, which I don't think will yield the results. And the scary part is that he admitted that there's been no real research. It was just basically the soccer team that was available that didn't have a tourism partner or a destination partner. Now, that's not a way to choose, there should be some empirical evidence on how you choose a partner if you're going to do that. But we feel that it's an easy sell. South Africa doesn't need partners in addition to what we're doing. We need to make sure that locally our tourism enterprises are empowered.
Yeah, I mean, he went on further to elaborate that, in fact, this is done with the youth in mind. It's done with women in mind, saying that projected return on investment on this will yield, 8 billion rand in foreign currency. I sense you have no trust in these projections.
Well, the projections are based on nothing. He's not substantiated how he's getting to these figures. He's admitted that he's picked a 1% growth and be getting all this coming in, and that's all well and fine. But he's done no research. There's been no information, and he did reiterate. I heard earlier he was talking about that there's no signed contract. But international media, I just saw it this morning in the UK, are saying that the contract is going to be signed this week. Now, I suspect they may backtrack now because of the media attention and the public attention. But that means that had there not been public attention, this contract would have been signed this week without any input from stakeholders, and it would have kind of gone under the carpet when the money should be spent elsewhere. It's already growing. It's an easy sell. We should just be promoting our country, telling the world about us, and people will flock to us. Because we're in the right time zone. With Europe, for example, there's not much jet lead or jet lag. It's an easy sell. We're not in a situation like Rwanda that needs to come out of a war and promote their country. it's easy to sell South Africa, and we don't need to go and spend unnecessary money this way. I would rather, for example, take this money and contribute to either buying diesel to assist with load shedding, or assisting with infrastructure to tourism sites, or even enterprises. People are suffering, losing jobs, losing their businesses. Somehow assist them, because the tourists are coming if we just promote and tell people about ourselves.
In fact, we are petitioning the government of Rwanda to come and tell us about their secret to success, because they've also got those beautiful gorillas that cost an arm and a leg to see. But we understand that the DA abroad sought the audience of Tottenham Hotspur to get some answers. How did that fare?
We approached the management yesterday, and they seem hesitant to meet us, and said that they have provided no comment, which to me brings up some red flags. Why are they hesitant to meet with us? Why, is there anything they're hiding, for example? So I'm not comfortable with where this is progressing, and we're going to be pursuing it more. I'm submitting questions to the Minister through official channels in Parliament, and we're going to be pursuing it more. So even if the soccer management doesn't want to see us, we're going to pursue every channel we can possibly get to get to the bottom of this. But I think it is really insulting to South Africans that there's a proposal to spend R1 billion on an overseas team, when in this case we actually don't need them. And that's the bottom line. We should rather be pumping the money into where it's more needed, certainly locally.
Many South Africa utopia say we had functioning electricity, functioning water, functioning public health care system. Would this then maybe be a non-issue, maybe, if things were, because you cited that we've got so much on our plate at the moment that we can't even afford to throw a crumb on the floor. So if we had everything sorted out, would this be a non-issue?
I think, one of the examples that I also cited is, for example, Abu Dhabi and so forth. So we either have the one extreme where an idea like this would be useful in a country like Rwanda that is trying to come out of a war, trying to rebuild their economy from scratch, or you have the opposite in the Middle East, where they have a fantastic tourism sector that's growing all the time. Even during COVID, it did relatively well. And they are almost doing this as a top-up, as a cherry on top to what they're already doing to grow it even more. But we're not in that situation. We can continue growing. We should be helping our enterprises locally, and perhaps in the future, God willing, that we have all these issues resolved. We have load shedding and our economy and everything else resolved, that we can then look at how else do we increase the interest to South Africa. But the market is still so interested in South Africa. People want to come to South Africa. It's got a positive image. People still talk about Mandela even after all these years after his death. So it is a positive feeling that people get about South Africa. So we don't need a soccer team that has, by the way, got a trophy some 14, 15 years ago. We need to just do our basics, make sure that we can get our tourism sites going, look after our own tourism industry, and start pumping into areas that are forgotten, like townships, like little dorpies, where there are amazing things happening on a small scale, and we need to help them magnify that so tourists do go to those off-beaten tracks and other interesting parts of our country.
Thank you very much to Manny de Freitas, DAMP responsible for tourism.